So Turkey's parliament officially approved Sweden's NATO membership bid earlier today, marking a significant milestone for NATO. Now, this decision comes after 20 months of delay with the Turkish General Assembly, where President Erdogan's ruling party holds a majority, voting 287 to 55 in favor of Sweden's application. It's likely that President Erdogan will sign it in the next few days. Now, Sweden initially submitted its request back in 2022 as a response to Russia invading Ukraine, and they wanted to strengthen their security along with Finland. But for any country to join NATO, it requires the approval of all existing member nations. And in the case of Sweden and Finland's application in 2022, Turkey had raised objections due to their perceived support of terrorist groups, such as the PKK, also known as the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Now, Finland's membership was endorsed in April of last year, but Turkey and Hungary were keeping Sweden waiting. And Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, who is known for being very friendly with President Vladimir Putin, has invited Sweden to negotiate Sweden's membership into the bloc. What is interesting is Viktor Orban originally said that Hungary would not be the last country to vote Sweden in, but here they are, the last country. And what has happened is probably Viktor Orban has seen Turkey receive some concessions for voting Sweden in, and now Viktor Orban and Hungary want to do the same. That, and Hungary's parliament is on recess until mid-February. Now, Viktor Orban previously said if Turkey approved the vote, so would Hungary. However, his party members have their panties in a wad over Sweden questioning the state of Hungary's democracy, which is what everyone else is doing, except for Putin and his mini-stooge leaders around the world. Now, Turkey's delays in approving Sweden's membership frustrated some Western allies, but also allowed Turkey to secure certain concessions. And in response, Sweden introduced a new anti-terrorism bill criminalizing membership in a terrorist organization such as the PKK. Additionally, Sweden, Finland, and Canada, as well as the Netherlands, relaxed their policies on arms exports to Turkey. And this is something that you could see Viktor Orban raising an eyebrow at. Perhaps he could force some concessions from the European Union with regard to some of the monetary policies that Hungary would like to see go their way in the near future. Now, Erdogan sent Sweden's bid to Parliament back in October and linked the ratification to the U.S. approval of the sale of F-16 fighter jets to Turkey. Now, the White House supports the sale, and there are expectations of a swift deal following Turkey's approval of Sweden's bid, but there's no specific timeline for approval by the U.S. Congress, and they haven't provided one. It's not even on the docket at this point. Now, Sweden and Finland are two highly capable professional militaries whose nations have maintained neutrality for decades, and they have really tried to be neutral for decades. And they will add significant combat power and geopolitical advantage to NATO. Now, it is a dramatic change that their populations, who for decades generally agreed it was better for them not to antagonize the Russian Federation by formally joining NATO, have now committed to this new course. And not only that, they are eager to participate in training and integration efforts into NATO. Sweden brings a very strong defense industry with Saab and Volvo, who make the Gripen. They also are one of the leaders in cyber defense. So now that it looks like we have 32 NATO treated members, at least here in the near term, let's break down the total numbers here. Military spending in NATO is now $1.3 trillion. When you compare that to Russia and the CSTO, that's $118 billion. We're talking about a 10x difference here. NATO's military personnel numbers are around 3.5 million. The CSTO is about 1.3 million, and that was before Ukraine. So those numbers could be a little lower, could be a little higher, depending on how you count the conscripts that have been added, but also a lot of Russia's professional military has been killed in Ukraine. When it comes to aircraft carriers, it's not even close. NATO has 17. Russia and the CSTO have one-ish because the Admiral Kuznetsov is really just not running right now. So even if they got it up and running, there's no telling if it would be combat effective. And don't forget Ukraine, they still would be fighting against Russia. Plus Georgia and Bosnia-Herzegovina have membership action plans with NATO. Japan has created a NATO liaison office in Tokyo, which is the first of its kind in Asia. In the Pacific, we also have NATO partners in Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. And before you say it, no, China would not join the fight on Russia's side. They don't want any of that mess at all. And all told, between NATO and its non-NATO partners, there's some 40 countries either in NATO or absolutely willing to fight alongside of NATO. Invading Ukraine was one of the greatest strategic blunders in the history of Russia, and it is Putin's fault. And he will have to deal with that embarrassing legacy for all of eternity.